appunto hai un'idea di Stato democratico, di Stato sociale, evidentemente appunto hai molto a cuore l'idea che ci sia una possibilità di fare una resistenza e di cercare di opporsi rispetto a questa forma di ferocia, di fame che ha il capitalismo digitale rispetto alle stesse istituzioni. Sei un pubblicista di fatto, l'esempio che per esempio fai nella Silicon Valley rispetto a Uber e rispetto al trasporto pubblico è l'auto-organizzazione dal basso a Helsinki di un tentativo di fare quello che fa Uber, però appunto attraverso un sistema pubblico. Ti vengono degli esempi, ci sono degli esempi di politica efficace di contrasto a il fatto che le politiche nella salute, nel trasporto, nel lavoro vengano decise, programmate da altri, quindi appunto non abbiamo più la possibilità di intervenire. Una delle dei nomi che tu fai nel tuo libro, secondo me un riferimento molto efficace è quello di Angela Davis, che in un saggio del 2005 poneva proprio questa questione. Internet ci ha insegnato a mobilitarci, ma ci ha fatto perdere di vista uno dei problemi fondamentali della politica anche del Novecento, cioè l'organizzazione. Noi dobbiamo avere una lunga visione. Dobbiamo probabilmente combattere la battaglia, non questa di oggi, ma quella con cui avremo a che fare fra 5-10 anni. Quindi ti chiedo che appunto la tua capacità di analisi, anche un po', come dire, tuo malgrado profetica, probabilmente insomma ti aspettavi che andasse male, ma non ti aspettavi che andasse così male forse 10 anni fa. Da un punto di vista appunto politico, di attivista politico, quale evidentemente tu sei, quali sono secondo me le misure organizzative che tu proporresti oggi? Quali sono le forme di resistenza e di organizzazione migliori rispetto a questo quadro che tu delinei?
So, I think we have to keep in mind that since 1968, acts of individual resistance are easily integrated in the overall framing of global capitalism, unless they are matched with some kind of broader strategic vision of social transformation in general. And I think the reason why Silicon Valley is so successful is because in some sense it represents the avant-garde of this 1968 thought, where you can actually be a rebel and be like Steve Jobs, show up in important meetings in a hoodie or without shoes and say a lot of bizarre things about LSD, while at the same time be the most ruthless capitalist that would make Henry Ford blush or John D. Rockefeller, right? And I think the integration of this ruthless capitalist logic with acts of individual rebellion is something that needs to be understood and grasped sociologically, anthropologically, culturally, but it also means that you should not be looking for easy tactical way outs, because in most cases those easy tactical way outs will be supplied by the very forces we are trying to undermine and undo. Right? This is where I think we have to be very clear as to what our ultimate goal is. To give you an example of privacy, right? So, or security for that matter, but let's speak about privacy for a moment. I think at this point there will be quite a few technology firms, venture capitalists and investors and so forth, that would be more than happy to offer you privacy, even in a time when everything is insecure, everything is falling apart, there are cyber attacks everywhere and so forth. They would be able to offer you privacy maybe at a small fee. Right? They will offer it as a service. Right? That's the kind of paradigm I've been trying to specify also theoretically, because more or less all of the things that we used to take for granted, that were part of the structure of the lo Stato Sociale, as you call it here, the welfare state, or the social democratic state, what the Germans call the Rechtsstaat, yeah? All of that, which used to come to us as rights, right? They were constitutionally guaranteed rights that everybody could expect. Now, because of the continued attack by highly financialized capitalism and by highly technologized capitalism, all of those rights are being undone, which does not mean that you cannot functionally reproduce some of the goods that those rights were supposed to deliver. So in the case of privacy, you can in fact functionally rebuild privacy as a right and make it function as privacy as a service, whereby at a small fee, all of your digital traces will in fact disappear from online. You will feel very secure. Your computers will be protected, but that would require a monthly or weekly fee. And that more or less is the model according to which even big companies like Microsoft work now. So we've all heard about the cyber attacks that were just happening over the last 2 weeks. And that brought a lot of the practices that companies like Microsoft have into focus. So Microsoft, for example, now has a 2-tier model whereby you can pay a little bit when you buy Windows for security and your systems will be secure, or you can pay a much higher fee, 600 euros, for example, a year, to make your system super secure. Which means that you already see differentiation happening, and basically Microsoft itself is not doing its best to secure its own systems, right? And worse, on top of selling us insecure systems that are vulnerable to cyber attacks, they now also want to sell us an insurance service to protect ourselves from the very vulnerabilities that they themselves live in those systems, because they know that that's the only way to get money from the insurance payments, right? And I think that this transition towards a service model is basically a return to feudalism. I have absolutely no kind of problem in calling it what it is, because ultimately it's a shift from a model based on rights that are guaranteed through a democratic constitution to a model where you ultimately depend on the benevolence of the service provider, which can also terminate your existing relationship with that provider anytime they want. So, you know, when you buy books from Amazon, which is an example I often give, you're not actually buying books, right? You are basically buying a right to use the service of flipping through books on your device. This is what you're buying when you're buying digital books. Which also means that according to the terms and conditions that you are signing, they have the right to revoke that book from your Kindle or from your iPad anytime they want, right? Which has happened and which will happen. Which basically means that the dependence and the power relationship that emerges out on top of that dependence has very little to do with any kind of model of democratic representation or rights. It's something where you're ultimately there at the mercy of whoever happens to hold more power. And now they hold more power because they have the data and they have the services. Now, to answer your question about how that can be tackled, I think it should put us into the right mindset. Because I don't want to solve that problem, right, by turning everything into a service. So you can say, yes, we're very insecure, privacy disappears, what do we do? Well, you go and you purchase a service to make yourself more private and less secure. All of that is possible. Right? You can possibly even purchase services that will, make algorithms more ethical, more transparent, and so forth. All of these problems that we feel that do not go to the very heart of the model of accumulation, this sort of new digital capitalism, they will be satisfied by the very same providers that you are trying to more or less undermine. Right? Once you actually have the proper analysis of how the current wave of capitalism functions, you'll understand that the question of data and data ownership could not just be left outside of the debate, and the question of the infrastructures that generate that data and that process it can also be left outside. Once you keep those two in mind, right, the data ownership, infrastructure ownership, then you can start asking new questions. What kind of a new welfare state can we build having all this data? I mean, it is true that there are certain changes in how our health systems work that become possible due to immense collection of data. Those are not, by and large, just negative changes. There is quite a good amount of useful knowledge and insights that can be harvested by analyzing huge data sets that relate to the behavior of people. You can understand cancer much better. You can understand, how people develop certain malfunctions or symptoms much better. You can warn them early on. There are lots of things you can do. Once all of those data-based systems are integrated into a model of healthcare that's not privatized and that does not put the interests of insurance companies and big pharmaceutical companies at its heart, which unfortunately is the direction in which virtually all healthcare systems in Europe are heading towards. Now, if we manage to reverse that trend, and we have a very nice strategic vision for what to do about data and infrastructures, we can in fact be rebuilding new institutions of the welfare state to work in a model that is based on solidarity and some kind of collective interest, and not just on individualism and the idea that all of us are responsible for our own problems, which more or less is where this current system culminates. Once you marry the logic of digitization, as seen and espoused by Silicon Valley and technology firms, to the highly neoliberal logic of biotechnology firms and pharmaceutical companies, you do end up in a world where the assumption is that if you're sick, it's your own fault, and they have the data to prove it. So you're not even allowed to claim any insurance benefits and so forth. And I think that that's the core issue. And ultimately what I'm saying is that there are ways to solve the data problem and to solve the infrastructure problem. They will not be as useful as we do not solve the big problems of capitalism at the same time. If we don't solve the data issue, if we don't solve the technological issue, without also solving the problems of capitalism, we'll end up in a world that will be far worse than even what we have now. It will be feudalism on steroids, where ultimately a bunch of corporations who manage to appropriate the most valuable resource out there, which is data, will dictate the terms to the rest of society in a way that will leave no space for any democratic representation. You cannot vote Google out of office. You can't. It's not anywhere on the democratic agenda. There is no referendum you can hold about whether you would like Google to run your life. I mean, yes, you can take your data from Google increasingly. They will even allow you to take your data, but where do you bring it? Which poses all sorts of questions about industrial strategy. Why Europe has done nothing in this field, right? Why China, for all its faults and lack of democratic freedoms, managed to build its own sovereign technological, economy, where virtually every service can be offered by domestic Chinese firms. It's not by any means communism. I mean, say what you will about China, you can call it authoritarian capitalism, which I think is a much better description. But they do have a bunch of technology firms that are the only ones that can compete with Silicon Valley. Where is Europe in this picture, right? It's not in it. And it's not in it, I think, partly because back in 1970s and early 1980s, Europe lost the trade war to the United States. It agreed to the liberalization of trade and services. Despite all the efforts that went into making strong data protection legislation, it ended up acquiescing to self-regulation of American technology firms when it comes to data collection. And eventually, all this resistance that we now see to trade treaties like TTIP, TISA, and TPP, in a sense, is only the ultimate step in that long fight. Ultimately, Americans have consistently viewed data as the most important economic resource, because data is what underwrote the transition from the industrial economy to an economy based on services. And the economy based on services is also an economy dominated by finance and technology firms. Right? So Americans knew what they were doing from 1970s onwards. Europe, for whatever reason, could not find a way to keep its data from leaving its borders, despite all the data protection legislation. And ultimately now it ended up in a situation where all of the big European technology firms have been allied to either die or become much weaker. I mean, look at what has happened to Nokia. So we ended up here in a situation where we have full technological dependence on the United States, which also translates into economic dependence. And there is no other way to put it. I mean, ultimately, in a world where every single transportation service is offered by Uber, what does it mean? I mean, it means that the local economists, despite the corruption of taxi firms, that is real, and in Italy is probably stronger than many other places, despite all of the corrupt practices in that industry, the money that used to stay locally, no matter how corrupted the officials and the companies were, now end up in Silicon Valley. They end up in California, making all those people, already billionaires, even richer. Right? And that, I think, is the question that we should be discussing, and yet, because of all of the countercultural and cultural luggage that I have discussed at the very beginning, what do we end up discussing? We end up discussing, Are these people the new heroes? Like, are they the new Thomas Edison? Are they the new innovators? What kind of values do they have? How much microdoses of LSD do they take to become so innovative? The debate is still very much cultural, and it's not political and it's not economic. And the depoliticization of that debate has been the greatest fortune of American economy. And I think without bringing this geopolitical dimension to the conversation, Europe will never put its act together.